Darko Rajakovic talked about it after the game. RJ Barrett talked about it after the game. And there is a pretty large source of where problems are coming from right now. And it's being labeled a lot as the Raptors are starting slow. But to me, it feels like more of an effort thing that's being disguised as a quote-unquote slow start. I said RJ Barrett talked about it, Darko Rajakovic talked about it, and there's parts I agree with, and there's parts that I really disagree with when it comes to these two. So, like Darko Rajakovic spoke about it. I have an article up here from M Sports written by Charlotte Baker, and Darko talks about where things kind of went wrong here and blames a lot of that problematic game against the Spurs on a slow start. Says it was not just the second half. It was pretty much 3.5 quarters where he thinks the Raptors played well for 3.5 quarters. It was the first 5 minutes where they really let themselves go. He says in the first 5 minutes, they scored 20 points and they scored 41 in the first quarter. For whatever reason, we did not come with the intensity and attention to detail you need when you play on the road against a very talented team. We did not do a good job with that part after. We did not do a good job with that part after that. So, first of all, a little bit confusing to me when he says, we did not come in with the intensity and attention to detail that you need. You're the coach. That's kind of your job. So to say, for whatever reason, we did not come in with the intensity and attention to detail you need. That's kind of your job to have that attention, like to bring that attention to detail and to get your team kind of energized. Now, like, can the team be flat? Can a team be under energized for a game and that's kind of beyond the coach's reach? Okay, sure, but maybe shoulder that a little bit more than he did there, in my opinion. And second of all, I watched. Granted, I was dual screening with the Blue Jays, but I watched that and I watched that entire game up to like garbage time. There were a lot more poor. There was a lot of poor basketball by the Raptors. Was it better than the first 5-6 minutes? Sure, but the first quarter as a whole wasn't good, and the rest of the game wasn't that great either. Other than some mini runs the Raptors went on to keep the game close. The Spurs were pretty casual for the duration of the game. So to say that the first 5 minutes hurt us, and yes, it did, but you also still gave up 41 points as a whole in the first quarter, and it still wasn't that good for the rest of the game. So let's not just blame it solely on the slow start for me. RJ Barrett also talked about this supposed slow start, and there's actually a video we have to show for this one. This comes from the channel Jump View, and let's listen into what RJ Barrett had to say.
Tired of getting scored on, I guess. Just trying to really figure it out. I mean, of course, it's really our, first couple games together, but I feel like we can, definitely speak for myself, give a little bit more effort at being ready, I think,
So at least he's kind of acknowledging the effort thing that I was acknowledging. It feels the effort wasn't quite there. And yes, that leads to a slow start, and that's a problem, but it feels like a very large effort thing, even kind of throughout the entire game. And I'll get into that a little bit more in just a sec, not just the start of the game.
Yesterday, we started off not too bad, but it's kind of been like, I'll say half the games we started good, half the games we didn't. So just trying to make sure that we can have a focus and intensity from the beginning. Because, outside of that first quarter, it was a pretty even game. I think we won some of those quarters, actually.
It was more even, but still felt like the Spurs were in control and didn't really need to kick it into extremely high gear. They felt pretty comfortable in that game from my perspective.
After that, so we played a pretty good game outside the first quarter, but, as you can see in this league, like, that one quarter could get you beat.
All right, so interesting comments there from RJ. I do like the acknowledgement of the effort, maybe not quite being there from the team's standpoint, especially going into the games. I do think the coach needs to shoulder quite a bit of that. But I have felt for pretty much like the entire time Darko Rajakovic has been head coach for the Raptors, there's been a lot of these supposed slow starts, and a lot of the times, sure, you can blame effort, but a lot of times it just feels like they're just underprepared for the team they are playing against, and they are underprepared for the style of defense they want to play. Like, they spent the entire summer kind of hyping up their defense, hyping up their demeanor and how things were going to change this season. And it's cool that they were doing that, and I really did buy into that. I've even talked about it in a stream probably like less than a week ago. I was talking about this, but you have to show it on the floor as well. You know, like in that first quarter, I mean, throughout the game, but particularly in that first quarter, I agree that was the worst of it. The amount of times the Spurs were just kind of casually getting to the rim, getting past defenders. The Raptors were kind of pressing a little bit higher. They've upped their where they're picking up a little bit higher this season compared to last season. They're getting blown by sometimes a little bit too easily. Then the help defense is late to get there. Like, I remember the Raptors made a bucket with like 6 seconds left in the first quarter. Hopefully that was kind of sent him into the break with a little bit of momentum. And then in the 6 seconds the Spurs had to get a point at the other end, Dylan Harper basically walked to the rim with very little resistance. And there was a defender there, I forget who it was, but it just felt like so many times there was a definitive lack of resistance on the defensive end. So it just felt like they were very underprepared in what their roles were on rotations, because the Raptors were giving up a lot of open threes, and what their roles were as far as help defenses. And again, part of that's on coaching. Like, it just feels like the Raptors weren't quite prepared for this. Other examples I've seen in previous seasons, like there's one game, I think it was even Darko's first season, but I just will never forget this game because it was just such a stupid game plan going into it. It was against the Phoenix Suns when they had like Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and the Raptors were sending help a lot on Kevin Durant. Yeah, that's Kevin Durant, sure. Send doubles his way. But they kept doubling off of Grayson Allen, one of the premier shooters, and he had an amazing season that year shooting threes. They kept doubling off Grayson Allen, which would then leave like the best shooter in the league at the time, percentage-wise, I think he was, wide open. And I think he had something like, this sounds crazy, but I feel like he had something crazy, like 6 to 8 threes in the first quarter. And it's just one of those cases where it's like, how could you possibly come to the conclusion as a coach that this is going to be the strategy you're going to employ? And then when it's obviously really dumb and they're killing you every possession, how can you not adjust to what is going wrong quicker? So again, it just feels like there's a consistent trend where they're underprepared for these games, and then they come out flat, they have a poor start, and then they don't adjust to things quickly enough. So that's what I don't like. I agree, like, part of it is effort, part of it is on coaching, but also part of it, I continue to say, is on effort. Guys missing rotations, that's a lot of an effort thing. Guys not being quick enough on their help defense, that is an effort thing. And even on like the offensive side of the ball when it comes to effort, like Barnes is he's been quite good to start the season offensively, but this was one of his poor games on offense. And it's things like this. Scotty Barnes takes 7 shots against the Spurs. I remember his first 6. I don't remember the 7th field goal attempt, but I remember the first 6 field goal attempts. His first 6 field goal attempts. Actually, let's even do his first 5 field goal attempts. Were 3 3-pointers, which he made 2. So he actually took a 4th 3-pointer. That was his 7th shot. So he took 4 threes in this game, made 2, which is great. He took 2 contested mid-range jumpers. 2 contested mid-range jumpers. That's 6 field goal attempts on jump shots. He took 1 singular shot at the rim for the entire game. You know what he did on that? He got an and 1 and missed a free throw, but he got an and 1. How are you this good at basketball? You're Scotty Barnes. You are this good at basketball. How are you such an important figure to the team and only taking 7 shots, only drawing 1 shooting foul, and only taking 1 shot at the rim? I know we're playing Victor Wembanyama. I know that's clogging up a lot of the paint. But for the entire game, RJ Barrett was putting in a ton of effort on offense to get to the rim, to get higher percentage shots, and he had a great game. It was one of the reasons why we were even within a sniff of this team, losing by 18 points. So you see, like, players are capable of finding those lanes and making things happen. RJ Barrett proved it in that game. It's just a very inconsistent level of effort overall for the Raptors, where sometimes it's good, And when it's good, sometimes it's really good. And then sometimes it's bad. And when it's bad, sometimes it is very bad. So there are my qualms with a lot of proceedings for the Raptors at the moment. As many people have noted in the chat along with this conversation, the schedule is not going to be getting any easier for the Raptors. Tonight, if you're watching before the game, the Raptors tonight playing against the Houston Rockets. That's going to be a tough game against a very big team. And we're not a big team, and we're not as good as the Rockets. So that's going to be a tough one. But at least at home, see the Raptors can kind of sort things out there. Then they are away at Cleveland on Friday. Cleveland, probably the best team in the East. That's a tough game. Memphis won't be an easy game, but definitely one I think the Raptors should win Sunday at home. Then it's against the Bucks, who you've already lost to. Then it's at the Hawks, who you beat, but the Hawks should be a good team this year. Then it's at the 76ers, who are unbeaten to start the season, playing really good basketball. Then it's at Brooklyn, who, if you lose, then you should fire everyone because that's the worst team in the NBA. Then Cleveland again. Tough game. So it doesn't get any easier for the Raptors here. So it's very easy right now for this kind of poor start to the season to really be a slippery slope. And it's just really hard to recover from a poor start to the season. It's just mentally hard to do, and just from a record standpoint, you have to do a lot of digging for a Raptors team digging to get out. For a Raptors team that just probably wasn't going to be tremendous this season anyways, probably hovering around 500. A lot of work to do to even get back to that if the Raptors do not sort things out very quickly. They're going to be pretty decently sizable underdogs, I would think, in not only tonight's game against the Houston Rockets, but definitely against the Cavaliers on Friday. Yeah, 5.5-point underdogs today at home, and I imagine we'll see maybe 7.5 against the Cavaliers on Friday. So things are looking a little bit tough right now for Toronto. So it's just, we got to be able to figure this out. We got to be able to figure this out soon, because again, this just kind of spirals out of control, and I don't know if we have enough to climb out of whatever hole we may put ourselves in. So get this right. Don't even go in a hole. Effort needs to be there out the gates. Coaches need to better prepare the team out the gates, and we need that effort to be consistent over 48 minutes. Plain and simple.